Good morning, Colorado. You are listening to the Daily Sun Up. It's a conversation with the Colorado Sun. I'm team editor David Krause. Before we jump into today's conversation, here is a quick message from our sponsor.
Support comes from Credit Union of Colorado, proud to call Colorado home for more than 90 years. They are a local institution with a track record of showing up for the community and putting people first. Credit Union of Colorado. Honestly good. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Energy Outreach Colorado is a statewide nonprofit helping income-qualified Coloradans pay their energy bills. They support hardworking families facing tough choices between paying utilities and buying essentials like food. Learn how Energy Outreach Colorado is creating affordable energy solutions for Coloradans at energyoutreach.org. Set the summer trend. Electrify your lawn equipment and help reduce harmful ground-level ozone in your Front Range community. Learn more at simplestepsbetterair.org.
Now, back to the show.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, for our weekly health and environment podcast. As always, my great colleague, John Ingold. And also wanted to alert you that there are some special podcasts coming up. We are working on our series that we launched a few weeks ago on finding solutions for Colorado's water crisis. It's part of a Solutions Journalism Network national series of solutions-oriented journalism. And we've done a couple of stories and posted them. And we are doing some special podcasts around those stories with sound bites from our interviews with people around the state about how they're trying to save water, mixed in with some great music and some commentary from the reporters who are working on those stories. So we hope you will keep looking at our podcast space for those upcoming special podcasts. In the meantime, a lot of us on the Front Range are dealing with wildfire smoke. I know it's, of course, much worse to be dealing with actual wildfires as people around Pueblo are and other communities in Colorado. But we do have to, even though we're far away, deal with the smoke consequences and the air quality consequences. And John Ingold has been reporting on that, as we happen to have to do every fire season. John, how bad is that air for Colorado's Front Range? And then we can talk a little bit more about what people should be doing about it.
Yeah, well, so it's not just the Front Range that's having bad air quality. I'm looking at a wildfire and smoke map right now, and you're seeing bad air quality all throughout the Central Mountains, the valleys, into Grand Junction. Down in the southwest, it looks a little bit better, but again, still some fires down there with some smoke, and then truly abysmal air quality if you get close to any of the wildfires, especially the ones burning west of Pueblo.
And we keep seeing some of our favorite meteorologists tweeting out that we have, if not the worst air, some of the worst air in the world right now.
Yeah, so air quality in cities across the globe will kind of go up and go down throughout the day. So where your ranking is depends on the time of day it is for you and everybody else. But there's a site called IQAir.com that ranks air quality for cities around the globe. Denver currently has the worst air quality in the country by some measure and is ranked 11th for worst air quality in the world up there currently, and we're recording this about 1:40 on Tuesday, currently up there with Karachi, Pakistan, Israel, Jerusalem, Mexico City, Milan, Italy, and some other cities.
Wonderful places to live and visit, but also with notoriously bad air, and we don't want to be in that part of their company, unfortunately. From my side of the ledger on climate and environment reporting, I will throw in that the wildfire smoke and the particulates that come with that can irritate your lungs and harm your breathing come also, most of the time in Colorado, with ozone. And ozone is another irritant. Ground level ozone that's made much worse by intense wildfire smoke. They all combine together and cook on a hot day, and we've had plenty of those and got more of them coming up this weekend, up to 105 in the Denver metro area. And so the ozone levels are also very high, and those things together can make it very hard on people who have pre-existing problems. So John, let's talk a little bit about that. What should we be telling people? What are doctors telling people who are checking in about their recurring breathing problems and how this has exacerbated it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, both ozone and smoke and other particulates in the air can worsen asthma, can worsen any number of other respiratory diseases or cardiovascular diseases. And so, the general advice is for folks who may be sensitive to these type of things to stay indoors. Now, you mentioned the high temperatures as well. If you don't have air conditioning, or even if you do and you want to try to like open the windows at night to cool the house down a little bit more, you're kind of caught between two bad things, right? Do you let the smoke in and worsen your indoor air quality to let the cool air in? Or do you, shut that air out, but now have to deal with the heat? And I think you can see why these are such difficult issues here in Colorado. But generally, the state's recommendation for health in these situations is for people who are particularly sensitive, and this includes children because their lungs are still growing and developing. They should try to stay indoors, especially during the hottest parts of the day. Exercise in the mornings if you need to be outside. That's usually when air quality is better. And possibly use an air filter if you have access to a good quality one, but otherwise it's a really difficult situation for people all across Colorado.
That last part is a question we get frequently, and doctors, respiratory doctors in particular, get frequently about kids and what to do about that. The parents are often reacting, but wait, we've been hearing for years that my kids in general are too sedentary. They often have weight issues in America, and we don't want to worsen that. And I don't want it's not also not healthy to be sitting on the iPad all day indoors. So how do we balance that? What doctors have told us in the past, and also this year, and looking at what kids should be doing and how parents should weigh these difficult values. If you really, and we want our kids to keep exercising. If they're going to be doing it outdoors, encourage them to do it in those early morning hours before 9 or 10 a.m. when it's still cool enough and the ozone hasn't built up and wildfires have not gotten going again as they do late in the hot afternoons. If they do have ability to exercise later inside at a city rec center or a local community center, that's another good way to handle the problem. If they have pre-existing asthma or other respiratory issues, of course, be even more careful. As you mentioned, keep your windows closed. If you have any access to air filtration, there are places that city periodically opens up during the hottest of weather, whether it's a library or a community center, and encourages people to go there for cooler air and cleaner air. So keep those in mind and keep talking to your medical authorities and your medical advisors about that.
Well, Mike, let's take a turn towards a story that is interesting and important, but also maybe a little bit less serious. So moose are on the loose in Colorado, and there is a question of whether this is a long-standing thing that's been going on in our state for millennia, or whether this is sort of a recent turn of events due to human reintroduction. So what are you learning on that front, and why does it matter?
Exactly the question. How long exactly have moose been on the loose in Colorado? There has been a school of thought that the reintroduction, well, of course, that's a loaded word, the either introduction or reintroduction of moose that happened by Colorado Parks and Wildlife in 1978, where they brought in a couple of dozen of moose from both Utah and Idaho and Wyoming, and brought them in and said, hey, Colorado's got great location, great environment for moose that exist in other parts of the Rocky Mountains, and the Southern Rockies should be a great place. And they were right. And now we are up to something like 3,000 or more moose across the state. And it's gotten to the point where they, especially in Rocky Mountain National Park, are joining with their elk brethren to eat way too much of the willows and other things that help beavers create wetlands, and they're turning some of the Rocky Mountain National Park environment back into grassland, which is not necessarily a bad thing, except that wetlands in Colorado help diversify the ecology and also act as wildfire breaks. And so there are certain people in Rocky Mountain National Park who are worried that that balance has tipped too far because of too many elk and too many moose. And so the question of then whether moose were here naturally before then and that they should factor that in when they make long-term wildlife plans, or whether they really are latecomers and never belonged here in the first place is an important question. So come to find out that there are people at the University of Colorado Boulder and other places who study the archaeology of moose. And even though there are not that many moose bones left over through the thousands of years and the centuries of the past, they have found enough evidence through some really innovative methods to show that, in their very strong opinion and peer-reviewed opinion, moose existed in the Southern Rockies for hundreds, if not thousands of years before that 1978 introduction or reintroduction, and that they've always been a part of the natural environment here. And so anybody making long-term wildlife decisions should factor that in.
So this is kind of a fascinating thought and a fascinating debate, because there are lots of things that used to live in Colorado in greater abundance, at least, than they did now. And to what extent should it be the goal to restore that ecosystem and those environments that existed in antiquity? And we've seen sort of this debate now with wolves, same sort of effort. Hey, wolves used to be here, now let's bring them back. But Colorado's a different place. We have people in places where people didn't usually used to live in great abundance, and that creates new conflicts.
Absolutely. And you've got other animal issues. You've got people who are promoting beavers all across the Southwest and the Northwest because they are such an important part of the ecosystem. And so how do you balance the one species growth versus another species growth? And I think the researchers who we talk to would not necessarily say, okay, well, we're not prepared to answer that question once for all. That's a societal debate that's going to go on for some time. What we can offer is some actual evidence, and for you to then take and continue your debate. And what they are saying is that we've come up with some new methods of combining what few bones and actual physical artifacts there are of moose dating back hundreds of years in Colorado, or thousands of years, with things like Native American tribal artifacts, artwork depicting moose from hundreds of years ago in the Southern Rockies and in parts of Colorado, Native American oral histories and storytelling that talks about moose from hundreds of years ago. And you combine that with newspaper photographs and newspaper stories that might just show somebody with a trophy moose that was shot in, say, the 1890s or the 1910s, and realizing that there, yes, were moose all over Colorado long before that 1978 introduction. So what they're saying is that what we're offering here in this study is combining some new methods of archaeology and folklore and other forms of history to come up with some fairly definitive evidence that now you, the biologists and the policymakers, can take and at least have your debate from an interesting point. And they're saying that there are other species where this could be helpful. Apparently the mountain goat has a lot of anecdotal evidence, but not a huge amount of physical evidence about how long they've been in different places in the West and Southwest. And some of this technique could be applied to going into their history. So I think the important takeaway from this study is just the fascinating interdisciplinary work that went on to make it happen. And this whole kind of mind-blowing concept of thinking about historical eras and how we prove it, and then how that impacts what we're doing as we move into the future.
Yeah, really, really cool. Really, really fascinating. Thanks, Mike. And everybody, thank you for listening. We are here every other week, Mike and I, talking about health and climate issues. And we just really appreciate the support you always offer and show for the Sun and for local journalism. So take care.
Thanks for listening. And finally, here are a few stories that you should know about today.
Xcel Energy is seeking to raise a record $225 million in new revenue, partly by adding a $6.15 monthly charge to the average household bill. The request comes as more Xcel customers are facing disconnections for non-payment. Xcel electric rates have risen more than 20% since September 2023. Colorado organizations that work to prevent domestic violence and sexual assault are struggling to keep shelters open or afford hotel rooms for people who need safe places to sleep. The trouble comes amid a years-long decrease of federal funding. The groups have shifted to helping only the people who are at the edge of crisis, about to become homeless. The Aspen Acres fire has destroyed more than 250 homes and 4 commercial buildings in Pueblo and Custer counties. The latest damage tally comes as some residents are being allowed back into their homes in Pueblo County. Officials say residents returning to their homes in those areas should be ready to leave again if flames shift direction.
To read these stories and much more, visit our website, coloradosun.com. As an award-winning nonprofit news outlet, we take our mission of credible, independent journalism seriously, and you can check out our trust indicators at coloradosun.com/ethics. Our music is by the Denver-based Matt Skellinger Group. A link to their music is in our show notes, and a special thanks to Swallow Hill Music. I'm David Krause. See you next time.